From an obscure illegitimate son of a marquis household to a lord commanding great military power. I accompanied him for 7 years, lost 2 children. He reached the pinnacle of power, and I could no longer conceive, remembering that Gu Huasi avenged my mother's murder for me. I had no complaints or regrets. My love for him remained deeply rooted. The entire capital was sending women to the Marquis's manor, yet the Lord publicly severed his finger and swore he would never betray me in this life. But in the 7th year of our marriage, I witnessed with my own eyes him stripping a woman naked and pressing her onto the bed. If you dare wear my wife's dress so frivolously again, I'll make sure you can't get out of bed. That woman turned her face around, and she was the very culprit who destroyed my family. I twisted my ankle on the last wooden step of the tea-house stairs, stumbled, and when I looked up through the huge door crack, I saw my husband, who claimed to love me deeply, pressing a woman onto the bed. They entangled with each other without restraint, the floor littered with clothes torn off in haste. It wasn't until I saw that face that I felt as if struck by thunder, my ears ringing terribly, barely able to stand steady. My father's concubine's daughter, the murderer who killed my mother. She should have died in that fire to pay for my mother's life now. She was lying alive beneath Gu Huaxian, Shen Qingqing's arched neck, crisscrossing love marks both new and old. Gu Huasi buried his head there, completely absorbed in pleasure. She glanced at me provocatively through the crack in the door, then passionately wrapped her arms around Gu Huasi's neck, panting delicately as she begged. Brother-in-law, Qingqing feels so uncomfortable. What sister owes you in bed, Qingqing will repay double, is that okay? The proud flower in front of others was now utterly disgusting. Someone like you isn't even worthy of mentioning, Yunyi. Gu Huasi, with a mouthful of filthy obscenities, pressed down hard on her. The sprain at my ankle spread to my chest, tearing at my hatred, making my heart ache to the core. Shen Qingqing watched gleefully, biting down on her lust, reaching for Gu Huasi's thin lips while murmuring. But isn't brother-in-law the one who likes tactful goods like me? Otherwise, how could you, knowing full well that sister can't tolerate even a speck of dust in her eyes, deceive her with a charred corpse and hide me right under her nose for daily pleasure? You didn't even spare the tea-house, aren't you? Afraid sister will find out, brother-in-law. Gu Huasi bit down on her earlobe, and as she cried out in pain, he said through gritted teeth, "She would give me her life, how could she ever suspect me?" Inside the room, dry kindling met fierce flames. Outside, wind and snow raged violently. Standing in the wind and snow, I clutched my hatred chilled to the bone, even my voice trembling as I spoke. How long has this been going on? The guard knelt on one knee, not daring to raise his head. Oh, over a year now, madam. It is not that we deliberately hid it from you, but the Marquis gave strict orders, and this subordinate dared not speak out of turn. Over a year, in the 2nd year after Gu Huasi was in Pfeffoft as Marquis and appointed General, also the year when father was imprisoned by my swift and decisive actions, yet managed to escape unscathed. Regarding this, Gu Huasi spoke of the many unavoidable circumstances in the court situation, spoke of the Guyu family's difficult position, spoke of his own dilemma. In the end, I coldly drew the sword from the bedside. Only then did his face turn pale, and he told me he had already personally killed Gu Qingqing, the instigator who caused my mother's death. To comfort my heart, that charred corpse was coldly kicked with one foot into the surging river waters. He said, "Yunyi, the great revenge has been avenged. From now on you should be happier." But it turns out, from beginning to end, it was all a deception. Since you broke faith first, you can't blame me for turning ruthless. Keep your mouth shut, act as if you never saw me today. I turned and left, braving the wind and snow as I tore off the mandarin duck jade from my body and casually tossed it to a little beggar by the roadside. The sullied both people and things I want. None of them anymore. Treading through the wind and snow, I thought back on the 7 years with Gu Huasi. I recalled 17-year-old Gu Huasi, when my arrow, after lying in ambush for 3 hours, missed by a hair, and didn't take father's life, yet brought citywide manhunt upon me. extending his hand toward me. Come with me here. No one will search the Marquis Manor's carriage. Like the illegitimate son treading on thin ice. When he sought to marry me who had no backing, he was forced to kneel in the swirling snow and endured 30 lashes with the military rod. Though his flesh was mangled and bloodied, he forced a slight smile. Yunyi, I, Gu Huai, Si, cannot offer grand betrothal gifts to marry you. So I'll use half my life to prove my determination. Remembering our wedding night, his cheeks flushed red, the shy scene when he lifted the bridal veil with wild joy. Yunyi, from now on, you are my wife. May we be a pair of flying geese together for 100 years without separation. Remembering when I lost our first child, how he trembled and panicked as he lifted me from the pool of blood. His ice-cold forehead pressed against my cheek, tears rolling down and covering my entire face. Yunyi, don't sleep. I am back. I'll get justice for you. If propriety and law cannot take his life, then I'll stake my life against his. Remembering when I lost our second child and fell into unconsciousness. He held my hand and sat by the bedside, his hair turning white in a single night. Even if there are beautiful days and lovely scenery, what meaning is there without you by my side? If it were possible, I would trade everything for you to open your eyes. Remembering when the Empress detained me in the central palace and forced Ji Huaixi to marry her younger half-sister, his resolute fury as he severed his finger and swore an oath. If I ever betray Yunyi, may I, Gu Huaixi, die pierced by 10,000 arrows. Yesterday's vows are still vivid before my eyes. Yet today he has pierced straight through my organs with the deception of sharing his blessings. I hate and I am disgusted. The wind and snow have covered the path I came from, and I think it is time I take a different road. What is most disgusting isn't the betrayal itself, but how he plays the devoted husband while shamelessly deceiving me. Yesterday's vows still echo in my ears. Yet today he is already openly enjoying the fortune of having multiple women. This gap between you giving your whole heart while he treats you like a fool really makes one's hatred turn ice cold. When Gu Huaixi returned to the manor, it was already evening. As always, he came home late, bearing deep apologies and bulging pockets full of the sweets I love. Today it was roasted chestnuts, candied sweet potatoes, and tangulu. The roasted chestnuts from the east side of town are the most glutinous. The candied sweet potatoes from the west are the sweetest, and the tangulu from the north is what my wife is used to eating. Did your husband get anything wrong? He came in with the wind and snow, his fox fur still flecked with scattered snowflakes that he hadn't even had time to brush off before kneeling halfway in front of me, pulling out the sweets from his chest and offering them like treasures to win my favor. My wife's body is delicate. These things must be eaten while hot to be good. I found the carriage far too slow, so I rode the horse myself to make a round trip. Feel it, it is still warm. I turned my head away, evading him with disgust. He showed 3 parts surprise, 3 parts hurt, and 4 parts confusion. Are you blaming me for coming back too late? You know, I am not like before holding such an important position. Naturally, I am extremely busy. As if having finished his explanation, he held the snacks up to me. Which one do you want? I'll feed you. That seemingly sincere and earnest manner, as if the absurdity I saw at noon was just a muddled dream. But looking carefully, his inner robe was slightly wrinkled, and the chest of his undergarment was still stained with a faint layer of powder. Even his body carried the angelica fragrance that only Shen Qingqing and her mother had. He is truly terrifying, tenderly and thoughtfully loving me on one hand, while shamelessly deceiving and betraying me on the other. Me palm clenched in pain. I tapped that letter and said in a joking manner, "Do you still remember little Tao from my courtyard?" The cousin she travelled 1,000 miles to marry, bringing all her possessions, actually took a second wife after his business became somewhat successful. They were once such a loving couple, and when he took little Tao away, he also promised me he'd treat her well for a lifetime. Who would have thought a man's lifetime could be so short? What do you say should be done with someone who betrays their vows? Gu Huaixi's hand on the hand, warmer trembled, his tone suddenly 3 parts colder. Yunyi, not everyone has the leisure to fixate on the romantic affairs in the back courtyard. Why should such trivial matters be brought before you and me? A lowly born maidservant being made a merchant's concubine is hardly a disgrace to her. She is kept in fine clothes and fine food, what more could she want? So keeping her in fine clothes and fine food is enough. Huh, I pulled out a sneer that was 3 parts sarcastic. If that is the case, then let's eat. The dishes are getting cold. He breathed a sigh of relief, but frowned when he saw the dishes on the table. How come there isn't a single meat dish? What are the servants even doing? Today is my mother's death anniversary. It is not appropriate to eat meat. Gu Huasi's expression stiffened. I am sorry, Yunyi. There were too many important matters in the capital today. I was so busy I forgot about mother-in-law's Memorial Day. It is fine. He was busy rolling around in bed with Shen Qingqing, exhausting an entire afternoon. I know, slowly getting up. I took that letter with me. I am too tired today. I'll retire first. Take your time eating. Let me take a hot bath and then keep you company. No need. It is mother's death anniversary. I just want to sleep alone. Gu Huaisi paused. Tomorrow I'll accompany you back to the Shen residence for a visit. Go back to my maiden home fine. That shameless father and his mistress should be met with too. Gu Huaisi on his tall horse, bringing me and a cartload of lavish gifts, returned to the Shen household in grand procession. Along the way, I don't know how many women blushed with shyness and turned red-eyed with envy. Yet no one knew that in my carriage there had fallen an earring that didn't belong to me. It was the one worn by Shen Qingqing's mother, that prostitute, on the day she drove my mother to her death. It was also deliberately dropped by Shen Qingqing as a provocation and humiliation. The sharp earring pierced into my heart. When getting off the carriage, Gu Huasai instinctively reached out to help me. But remembering his hypocrisy, I felt utterly disgusted. I moved aside and got off the carriage on my own, holding up my skirt. He frowned. Madam, you've become distant with me. I looked at him terrifyingly calm. Clearly you were the one who deceived first, and now you turn around and blame me for being cold to you. Don't tell me the one who broke faith isn't you. Wasn't it you who stabbed the other in the heart first? Yunyi, why didn't you let your father know in advance that you were coming? I would have prepared some of your favorite treats. Father greeted me with great enthusiasm, putting on a show of deep father-daughter affection, but that vulgar touch of pink behind him still gave him away. Go walk in the back courtyard with your Aunt Shuimei. Your father happens to have important matters to discuss with Huaisi. No need. I'll just sit in my mother's courtyard by myself. This so-called Aunt Shuimei was Shen Qing's mother, Song Shuimei. She was also a daughter of a noble family, but was later sentenced to a brothel for the crime of house raiding and clan extermination. Father secretly redeemed her, and from their illicit affair was born Shen Qingqing, who is only 4 years younger than me. She shamelessly ordered Shen Qing to barge into the Shen family home, while my mother was in labor, kneeling before my mother to demand status. The shock caused my mother to hemorrhage severely, resulting in 2 deaths. I was 7 years old then, holding a knife to Shen Qing's neck, forcing the servants to notify my uncle to stand up for my mother. In the end, Song Shuimei couldn't enter the Shen family's door. She was settled in our Yunyang hometown with the status of a concubine. On the night I married Gu Huasi, I said under the red candlelight. From now on, I have only 2 goals to support your lofty ambitions and to avenge my mother's great grievance. Gu Huasi swore to the heavens. Your vengeance is my vengeance, madam. When I reach a high position, I will spare nothing to avenge you. Latter, he pointed at a charred corpse and said to me, Shen Qingqing is dead. Yunyi, you should be yourself now. Where did Shen Qingqing die? She died on their bed of pleasure. Hatred pierced me, my palms full of bright red blood. If madam doesn't like it, then don't let anyone upset her. Gu Huasi grasped my ice-cold hand, his face showing rare severity, yet he left them plenty of room. Song Shuimei's smugness froze on her face, and she hurriedly bent down to ingratiate herself. Yes, yes, we'll listen to the Lord Marquis. This servant has lost her sense of propriety, and will withdraw now, helping me tighten my cloak. Gu Huasi pretended to dote on me as he scraped my nose tip. If you are unhappy and want to leave, call me any time. I'll always be waiting for you. Then his brows furrowed, and he said coldly to the two people behind him, if anyone makes her uncomfortable, deal with it on the spot. My wife is not someone just anyone can give attitude to. Father, as if understanding, repeatedly apologized, and hurriedly drove Song Shuemei back to her courtyard. They were all putting on an act, but I took it seriously. When I entered Mother's courtyard, Song Shuemei was already waiting inside to make me uncomfortable. Ching Ching has been with the Marquis for a year now. By all rights and reasons, you as her sister should welcome her into the household. After all, what you can't give but the Marquis desperately wants, only my Ching Ching has. The so-called insatiable craving you, and that always proper mother of yours wouldn't understand. Rather than letting the Marquis sneak around day and night, why not let him eat his fill openly? She arrogantly adjusted the hairpin on her head, each piece worth a fortune. If not from Father's hand, then from Gu Huaixi's lavish spending. Flaunting it in front of me, I raised my eyebrows and asked, have you been freed from your slave status? Her body stiffened. Just as I thought, as long as Uncle is alive, you can forget about being freed from your slave status. Simone and Cum, this lowly slave speaks out of turn, beat her. Mother's courtyard was hollowed out, and even those few items carrying Mother's memories were all destroyed by Song Shuemei. Men are fickle, loving the new and despising the old. That father of mine had long forgotten clean the husband-wife affection from our humble beginnings. So how would he care about what happened to Mother's courtyard? Gu Huaixi wants to follow the same path as Father, but unfortunately for him, I am not my mother. I came here today especially for you, and you indeed did not disappoint me. Song Shumei's mouth was beaten to a pulp, and all the pearls and jade ornaments on her body were stripped clean. Like a dead dog, she lay on the ground, only able to whimper where was that arrogance from before. Having seen enough, I turned and left. The master has gone out. Father had gone out, but Gu Huaixi hadn't returned. Where could he have gone? The Marquis is in the master's study and hasn't come out. Separated by a door, I heard the sound of brush and ink falling to the floor inside the study. Shen Qingqing asked breathlessly, don't you miss me? I miss you so much I can't even sleep, brother-in-law that. Brother-in-law with its coquettish trailing tone drove Gu Huaixi crazy. Chasing all the way to the Shen residence. You are really fucking cheap, Shen Qingjiao responded with a charming smile. Dying under brother-in-law, even as a ghost I'd be happy. But if you ask me, no matter where, nothing compares to the comfort of elder sister's hot spring. Brother-in-law, when will you take me out for fun again? My hand paused, and I couldn't help but laugh out loud. The hot spring in the suburbs was a place for recuperation that Gu Huaixi knelt before His Majesty to obtain for me when I lost my second child and injured my body. That was the one and only favour that made all of the capital green with envy, but I never imagined they had also been wild there. Love had long since rotted, just like Gu Huaixi himself. I was disgusted to the point of nausea, my body terribly cold, curling up into a ball. With a crash, the door was pushed open. Smart people should learn to play deaf and dumb. Father slowly approached, pretentiously carrying my favourite crispy duck. Summonine like your mother, who can't tolerate a speck of dust in her eyes, will ultimately only trap herself to death. He smiled with utmost sarcasm. The Shen family won't displease Marquis Gu by seeking a divorce for you. If you insist on tearing off the facade, do you have the strength to handle the aftermath? Think about your uncle in his declining years. Can he withstand a heavy blow from Marquis Gu? Oh right, you don't actually think that when Marquis Zhu took your cousin under his wing a year ago, it was to curry favour with you, do you? My head exploded with a boom. To seek justice for mother, Uncle, a mere merchant, sued a court official, enduring rolling on a bed of nails and beatings with planks before finally bringing father to court. Unfortunately, I was too young that year and left no evidence behind. Father preserved himself by denying the identities of Song Shuemei and her daughter, but my uncle's health deteriorated from then on, bedridden for many years. Under his knee, there is only my cousin who excels at studying. He is on good terms with Gu Huaixi and trusts him wholeheartedly. So when Gu Huaixi asked him to train under his command, he went without hesitation. He said, In this world, only brother-in-law treats elder sister, well, he won't harm her. As long as it is for elder sister's sake, I am willing to climb mountains of swords or descend into seas of fire. But he broke a leg last year and injured his arm this year. Every time I ask about it, he says, brother-in-law says a man must have some solid martial skills. Just reading dead books is useless. Elder sister, I also want to be like brother-in-law, carving out great achievements from the spear's tip to support you. But this brother-in-law, he keeps crushed our trust and sincerity into mud beneath his feet. When Gu Huaixi held a high position, fearing he'd lose me as his life-saving Buddha, he seized control of Uncle's entire clan and used them as leverage to threaten me. What does it matter if limbs are broken? Taking cousin's life would be easy as pie for him. On one hand, he performed his love for me for all to see. On the other, he pressed a blade against my heart. Gu Huaixi, you are really something. Seeing me grit my teeth in anger, father smugly and disdainfully curled his lips. After all, you weren't shortchanged with fine clothes and food, and the lady's position was given to you. It is just about having a child. How could one from someone else's belly compare to your own little sister? What man doesn't want a child of his own? Besides, the Marquis's estate is so vast, surely it can't all be handed over to outsiders after his lordship passes away. Right? He just wants to give you a legitimate son. Learn to be smart. Don't push your uncle to throw away the other half of his life for you too. Today's crispy duck is especially succulent. His lordship will love it. Having made enough noise on purpose to alert those inside, he then went off obsequiously. My dear son-in-law, I've brought the crispy duck back. We can start dinner now. With a creak, the door was pushed open from inside. Gu Huaxi's collar was disheveled, his cheeks still carrying a flush that hadn't faded. When he saw me, he startled. Why aren't you wearing a cloak? What if you catch a cold? He hurriedly removed his cloak, impatiently draping it over me, but I was utterly disgusted and took 3 big steps back. Who upset you again? The fierce wind rolled up heavy snow, drilling into my limbs and bones through my sleeves. I was frozen with both eyes red, staring at him without blinking. When will my cousin's training end? He guiltily averted his eyes. Why bring this up all of a sudden? When? Yunyi Gu Huaixi lost his patience. His hands and feet have already been broken. What more do you want to do? He coldly draped the cloak over me, leaning down with imposing pressure to hold my shoulders. You behave yourself, and naturally he'll be just fine. His ice-cold fingertips even brushed against my cheek. Protect the Ji family's dignity. As for the rest, don't ask and don't meddle. Clearly threatening words, yet he could say them in such an ambiguous manner. But when he schemed all night using the child in my belly to exchange for the position of heir apparent, did he ever say it wasn't my business? When he had me follow closely behind His Majesty, risking my life for advancement, why didn't he say it had nothing to do with me? No, in a high position, he has become the one in power, gained the confidence to lord over others, wanting both respectability and secret pleasures. After using me to the bone, sucking me dry, he still wants to step on my head and make me play deaf and dumb. After 7 years together, it seems only today I see him clearly selfish, cold-hearted, shameless and vile. But how could he forget that when it comes to flesh and blood, I've never tolerated any betrayal. I could risk my life for him time and again, but I can just as well take his life for those I need to protect. Manipulate me. Are they even worthy? I hid my hatred and lowered my head with a smile. This isn't compromise, but restraint before the storm. She didn't tear off the mask on the spot, but hid her hatred in her heart, quietly plotting her counterattack. This kind of outward compliance, inward scheming cunning is the cruelest revenge against a betrayer. Is that so? Maybe you are right about everything. But I don't agree turning around, I said to father. Thank you for your guidance, father. Yunyi has learned from it, but I also have a gift for you. Father was puzzled, but still extended his hand under Gu Huixi's gaze. He smiled and placed the 3 teeth knocked out of Song Shuemei onto it. He was shocked and horrified, but I laughed heartily. Revenge should be taken on the spot. That is what my husband said, This time her nasty words cost her teeth. Next time, if she is disrespectful again, I'll gouge out her eyeballs. You know I can do it. Father was so frightened his face turned deathly pale, even his body was visibly trembling. All right, Guhuayesi let out a sigh of relief and took my hand on his own. It came to this over something like that. The teeth are already knocked out. You've vented your anger now. Isn't that enough? This counts as venting anger. Then didn't my mother die in vain? Don't my 2 children deserve their short lives? To truly vent, you all should repay every bit of pain I've suffered you ye. At our position, we can no longer act willfully. Everything has its limits. Only then can we leave room for each other. But he was wrong. When it comes to a fight to the death, it only depends on who is more skilled. There is no room left. Crispy duck, I had Lord Shen buy it for you. Try some Guhuesi played the role of loving me too convincingly, even so brazenly that he never once looked back at the study behind him. I didn't believe it, but Shen Qing standing pitifully at the study door biting her lip, did she rushed up to me when no one was around. At a window seat on the 2nd floor of the tea house, I handed my new identity and a 10,000 tael banknote to Crown Prince Zhou. His breathing paused. Are you sure you want to abandon everything in the capital and start over with this identity? I nodded gently. A herb-gathering woman with no family or friends, who looked similar to me, died suddenly in the deep mountains. I collected her body, so her identity is perfect for me to use. Besides, what I am sending to the Jiyu and Shen families is utter destruction. If I don't run, am I supposed to wait around to perish together with them? As an adult, be realistic. Keep your interests firmly in hand. Those icing on the cake things like love and affection, if they're gone, don't force it. Learn to pull back in time. When you are stuck deep in the mud, crying is useless. You have to think about how to escape and save yourself, then deal them a fatal blow. With the Gu family fallen, the Zhou family was now exposed. A collaboration, a win-win situation. Why wouldn't he, the young Master Zhou, be happy to do it? Rubbing his teacup, he asked with great interest. Going this far to mutual destruction, do you truly not cherish even a bit of those 7 years with Gu Huisi? The teacup paused, and I smiled. Would you miss 7 years of being deceived and used? Adults find their own way to survive. He wronged me. I can't wrong myself again, don't you think? Zhou Jingqiu understood my determination and told me to wait for his good news. The young master had just gone downstairs when Shen Qing came uninvited, smiling as she sat across from me. You wanted to use his hand to kill me, but he just had to fuck himself to death on top of me instead. She laughed wildly. The hairpin ornament on her head the one Guhuasi had promised to give me but ultimately claimed he couldn't find swaying so much. It made people nauseous. On the anniversary of your mother's death last year, when he made excuses about palace matters and left you alone in the outskirts. Do you know where he went? It was me. I had someone send him a bellyband embroidered with a voluptuous jade body. How could a hot-blooded man resist? For the next 3 days he stayed by my bedside. Even on your birthday, when you couldn't see him for so long, he was with me selecting a residence that would satisfy me. Sister, do you know how many times he took me in a single day at most? A full 7 times, sister. Guess what time he'll return to the Marquise's residence today? Or rather, will he even be able to return to the Marquise's residence today? Such intense and naked passion, you've probably never experienced it. Have you, sister? If you are really suffering, why not learn some of those seductive techniques from the brothels while I am pregnant? Men, they just love that stuff you noble ladies look down upon. At this point, does she really think I still care about Gu Huisi's bedroom antics? Meeting her provocation head-on, I asked with a smile. If you got what you wanted, why would you be sneaking around making a scene in front of me? I suddenly grabbed her hand and smiled sinisterly. How about I drag you in front of Gu Huasi and make everything clear? She immediately panicked, cursing me as a lunatic while frantically struggling to break free from me. Seeing her frantic desperation, I finally loosened my grip. Sending her stumbling, stepping over her disheveled state, I brushed off my sleeves, just a plaything after all. So what if you keep her? So what if she is with child? Even if she gives birth, won't it be the same bastard born of a mistress like you? Perhaps, if it is a daughter, you'll follow your mother's example, personally pass on all your skills, then teach her to be a mistress in the shadows for life. Shen Qingqing could no longer smile, becoming hysterical. We're both daughters of the Shen family. What right do you have to look down on me? So what if you entered the Guzhu family's gates? This past year of living like a widow hasn't been pleasant, has it? I don't know whether to call you stupid or foolish. A few little sweet treats and you are completely fooled. Do you know that my younger brother has long been freed from his slave status, and the excellent position in Yangzhou was personally arranged by ACI? My hand trembled and I was scalded by the tea, only then realizing I had nearly missed one. I should thank Shen Qingqing for the reminder. Me face must have turned deathly pale, making Shen Qingqing even more smug. Every year father goes to Yunyang under the pretense of visiting family. It is all to meet with my mother. My younger brother is only 2 years younger than me. Even before my mother's corpse had grown cold, father had already had another child with Song Xuemei. He should have burned him to death that year when I was 7. Throwing all caution to the wind, a chill spread through my entire body, the hatred making my heart freeze with panic. Everyone in the Shen family knew, but for the sake of father having an heir, they naturally all chose to keep it from you. Your foolish mother, spending a fortune to support the Shen family's ambitions, in the end was just making wedding clothes for my mother and younger brother. Something that can't take root. You and your mother will only end up the same way, rotting in bed with no one to collect your corpses. She laughed so hard her whole body shook. Smack, I slapped her across the face. Brother-in-law. Oh, so Gu Huasi is here, the corners of my mouth curved up, and I took advantage of the moment to grab Shen Qingqing's hand. Before she could play the victim, I gritted my teeth and pushed her down the stairs with me. I even grabbed her arm and slammed straight into the pillar at the corner. I was completely unharmed, while she was pressed down by me and fell until her head was bleeding profusely, and she even broke an arm. Gu Huasi practically ran over, and without a second thought pulled me into his embrace. Yunyi, are you hurt anywhere? Shen Qingqing's face was covered in tears from the pain, clutching her bloody wound, crying out unwillingly. Sister, if you want to beat or kill me, just come at Qingqing. My mother is truly innocent. You've ruined her face, how can she face people now? And now you've pushed me down the stairs. I am afraid the child in my belly. She covered her belly, looking pitiful and delicate. I beg brother-in-law to seek justice for Qingqing. She is so stupid. In front of all these people she can't possibly think that Gu Huasi, who is put up this loving husband persona, would protect her, right? Gu Huasi's brows furrowed slightly. His lips trembled before he said, asking for humiliation, you all deserve. It Shen Qing's tears froze on her face. Brother-in-law, get lost. Gu Huasi picked me up and left. The whole time, he didn't give Shen Qingqing on the ground a single proper look, but clearly those hands that held me tightly pressed on my old wound, squeezing until it hurt terribly. How come she wasn't burned to death by her husband, and she deliberately came over to show off that her brother got a good position in Yangzhou? Tell me, shouldn't she die? Gu Huasi's steps paused guiltily, but he avoided mentioning the bastard in Yangzhou. Madam is injured, return to the manor immediately. But I refuse. Kill them for me, Gu Huasi. That is what you've owed me since a year ago. Gu Huasi's brows knitted together. Yunyi, stop being unreasonable. Oh, so my revenge is just being unreasonable in his eyes. But this time I'll make sure to be unreasonable to the very end. The carriage returning to the manor was rushed, as if racing against time. When arriving outside the Gu manor, the guard whispered a few words, and Gu Huasi's irritation was written all over his brows. The guard hurriedly said, Lord Marquis, you still have official duties to handle this afternoon, could you? Gu Huasi nodded, not even willing to be perfunctory. Don't wait for me for dinner. He was about to turn around, but stopped in his tracks. Yunyi, have I spoiled you too much all these years? Do you know how much trouble you'll cause me by assaulting someone in the street? You will punish yourself by going to the ancestral hall to reflect properly. Tomorrow I'll take you to the palace to apologize. Fighting and killing all day long. What kind of behavior is this? The wind was too loud, unbearably noisy. I only heard myself say with a cold laugh, Without my fighting and killing, how would you be sitting securely on your high platform today? His eyes sharpened, glaring fiercely at me, but faced with my ruthlessness that showed not a shred of retreat, he left in anger. Turning the street corner, I heard the guard's voice. My lord, aren't you going too far? Madam is sharp and can't stand a grain of sand in her eye. A person back from the dead has made a scene right in front of her, yet you still protect her like this isn't that slapping madam in the face. Guhuesi's body froze. The guard continued. Madam hasn't had it easy accompanying you all this way. What if? Guhuesi let out a careless, mocking laugh. She has nothing, and her body is damaged, without me. What does she have left, though? Ching Ching is a plaything. The one in her belly is my legitimate son. Besides, with her cousin in my hands, even if she finds out, she can only grit her teeth and pretend not to know. Guhuesi knew everything clearly, which is why he did things that hurt and betrayed me so thoroughly and unscrupulously, separated by only a wall. Yet we seemed to be divided by an insurmountable chasm. We were clearly two opposing camps, enemies on different sides. Just one street away from the courtyard where that Shen Ching Ching lived, they sold my favourite candied hawthorn skewers. Every time Guhuesi went to have an affair with her, he would bring me back a skewer of candied hawthorn this year. Because he went there too frequently, I ate too much sugar and ended up with rotten teeth. At night, the pain kept me tossing and turning, sitting alone through entire nights. Sweetness wrapped around a blade, cutting me into 1,000 wounds bit by bit. That was his soft knife for killing me. Me tooth started aching again, so I hid in the study and stayed up all night. Not even 30 yet. How could I let myself waste away and die sick for the rest of my life because of those 7 rotten years? When adults stop talking about feelings, they start talking about interests. I traded 2 children and a healthy body for his career advancement. When he is no longer of use to me, I should take it all back. I pulled out the secret letters from Guhuai's study and copied them one by hand. Then I took his seal and stamped it on the position I was securing for my cousin. Finally, a life-threatening letter was sent to Yangzhou by express delivery. After finishing these things, I began to count the cash on hand. I settled everything for the rest of my life thoroughly. People should all be a bit selfish. He seeks pleasure for himself, so I should seek prospects for myself. He exerts his energy on women while I build my confidence through money. He profits big, and I cut my losses in time with limited damage. As expected, when Guhuasi returned to the manor, it was dawn again, and he brought candied hawthorns again. Always eating candied hawthorns. Won't you get sick of them? Don't people all love novelty and tire of the old? Just like him, 7 years was enough to get sick of it, tired of it. Guhuesi reeked of a nauseating sweetness, yet he still came to embrace me regardless. Yunyi, I've selected a child. Once he is born, I'll bring him to you to raise. I can't bear for you to be lonely without children. Can't bear for me to be lonely without children. More like he sees me as weak and easy to bully. Most suitable to be a stupid sucker. Right? I couldn't help but want to laugh, and actually laughed out loud. The more I laughed, the more crazed I became until I nearly collapsed to the ground. Shen Yunyi, have you made enough of a scene? I raised my eyes to look at his anger. Have you made enough of a scene? Made enough of a scene with Shen Ching Ching? The tea house, wine shop, hot springs, or in the carriage? Or perhaps father's study? Whichever place you like, she must care about it a lot, right? Shock flashed through his eyes. You knew. I curved the corners of my lips. If I hadn't found out, I would have been raising a son for my mother's killer. Guhuesi, you and I have walked together for 7 years. There must have been times of true affection. But when you raised the blade of emotion to slice me to pieces, didn't your conscience feel even a bit uneasy? Guhuesi instantly flew into a rage from shame. So what if it is? It is just keeping a plaything, nothing more. You got hurt, and now there is a scar the size of a palm on your belly. It looks terrifying. What do you expect me to do? Live like a widow for the rest of my life? He pushed me out to take that blade for his majesty, but the wound on my body turned out to disgust his heart. If I hadn't risked my life to block that vicious blade, how could you, Lord Gu, have what you have today? Enough. He trembled with anger. Don't keep reminding me that another woman could do the same. Shen Yunyi, you lost your mother early and were like a drowned dog. It was I who married you against all odds and made you who you are, not the other way around. I've already given you enough. What more do you want? I laughed. You made me who I am. Who was the one who got hurt? And who is the one holding all the power in the end? From beginning to end. I only wanted to use your hands for revenge. Have you done it? Enough. A table full of teaware was swept to the ground by him. Revenge, revenge, revenge all day long. Is there nothing else left in your world besides revenge? Have you ever racked your brains to please me like Shen Qingqing did? Have you ever understood my difficulties and set aside your hatred for me, even temporarily? You only have yourself. You truly are, as your father said, utterly unreasonable. He flung his sleeves and left, not returning for several days. Yet he confined me to the estate, forbidding me from stepping out even once. But I still quietly packed up the banknotes from selling my properties and sent them out of the city. This fake love game, Gu Huasi, I can only play along with you this far. On my birthday, for the sake of appearances, Gu Huasi still brought me, His Majesty's great benefactor, before everyone. Your Majesty's reward is for me, not for him. But before the banquet he'd prepared unilaterally even started. He kept being urged by people sent by Shen Qingqing. She wanted to make things difficult for me, but I was very magnanimous. Official matters cannot be delayed, my lord. Please go ahead. His expression froze for a moment, but he quickly let out a sigh of relief. My wife is so considerate of me, I'll go and come right back. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly turned back and said, I've already prepared your birthday gift. I nodded faintly and took one last look at him. I've also prepared a surprise for you. Hearing this, his eyes softened and he hugged me. My wife's sincerity I can only repay with the rest of my life. Go ahead. It doesn't matter if you take a while. Because this time I won't believe you anymore, and I won't wait for you anymore. An hour later, the guard rushed into the small courtyard in the north of the city in a panic. My lord, something terrible has happened, madam, is gone. When Gu Huaisi rushed to the Shen family from his gentle embrace in a panic, my mother's courtyard had already been burned clean by a fire. A charred corpse lay naked in the courtyard. He turned deathly pale, trembling as he shouted at the guard. How could this be? Wasn't madam waiting for me at the tavern? What the guard didn't know was that, after he was summoned by Shen Qingqing, I had already played the victim enough in front of the other madams before leaving the tavern in tears and entering the Shen residence alone. After standing in mother's courtyard for half a quarter hour, when the steward tentatively came to ask if I would stay for a meal, I turned around with a smile and asked coldly. Back when the steward's wife had a difficult labor, it was my mother who provided 2-century-old ginseng roots to summon a physician to save her life. Does the steward still remember? The steward's face stiffened, stammering words of gratitude, never once mentioning my mother. I understood then old favors are like flowing water passing by, those who received kindness and nourishment who would still remember, so I pulled out his son's hairpin. The steward's craftsmanship is truly excellent, even a hairpin carved by your own hand is so exquisite. The steward's face instantly went white with fear. The hairpin crowned atop the head. I took it with effortless ease. Taking his head would be just as easy as cutting vegetables. Miss, the law is above all else. Don't do something foolish. Even if you won't think of yourself, think of Madam's maternal clan's reputation. I let out a sigh. It is precisely because I thought too much about Uncle that I tolerated Shen Chongshan living for so many extra years, but what did my forbearance get me in return? The steward knows better than anyone, right? The steward, who often went to Shen Qingqing's courtyard, naturally knew clearly. He mumbled, unable to speak, so I continued. I came here today having already taken a gut-piercing poison, but dying alone would be too lonely, so I must drag a few people down with me as company. The steward's legs trembled, and I asked with great interest, "Who to take along, butler, you choose?" A package of poison medicine was placed on the stone table. I didn't even spare a glance at the butler kneeling in panic before heading to father's study. He held his beloved son's letter, his eyes full of admiration. But I suddenly ruined his mood, and his entire face turned cold. He didn't know yet that what is cold now is his face. But soon what will be cold is his body. It is not impossible for Shen Qing to enter the Marquise's household. But I have conditions. Shen Chongshan's eyes, filled with wine, lust, wealth, and greed, immediately lit up. That is right. Yun Yi, you must know that one stroke cannot write two Shen characters. We are family. Whatever conditions you have, as long as they're not excessive, your father will agree to them. I raised my eyes to look at him. Have Song Shuemei pour me wine and apologize. Shen Chongshan's face immediately beamed with joy. Good, 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 your father will arrange it right away. In mother's courtyard, it wouldn't be a problem. They were full of vigilance, drinking their wine with extreme caution. But I didn't care at all and drank it all in one gulp. As Song Shuemei bit down in resentment, I finally looked at her directly. You and Shen Qing share such a deep mother-daughter bond. I truly see it and envy it in my heart. Shen Chongshan was about to smooth things over again, but I stopped him with one hand. But I can only envy them. My mother died at your hands forever. Their faces turned cold. Only then did I stand up. The pain that gnaws at my bones, it has rotted inside me for over 10 years. Do you know how I've endured it? Shen Chongshan's face turned cold. Why bring this up? What is past is past. People should look forward. I raised my eyebrow and laughed lightly. Is it all past? Did my mother tell you so in a dream, or did I tell you myself? What do you mean? What I mean is, things that haven't passed for the victim will never pass. Blood debts can only be repaid with blood. The scene of my mother lying in a pool of blood, holding my hand and dying in agony, I will never forget. Such a gentle person, yet she ended up dying with her eyes open. Shen Chongshan, don't you have nightmares in the dead of night? Aren't you afraid? Shen Chongshan flew into a rage out of humiliation and shouted at me. I think you've gone mad, just like your short-lived mother, spending all day being jealous and petty, short-sighted, and deserving of death. I laughed out loud. If mother was so far-sighted, how did she choose a poor scholar like you that even Song Shuemei didn't want? She used her dowry to support your lofty ambitions, only to end up with the miserable fate of being killed by you. You think I don't know you wanted mother's dowry, and also wanted to be with Song Shuemei, so you force-fed her bowl after bowl of tonic to enlarge the fetus, then used Song Shuemei's hand to make my mother go into difficult labor from fright, yet without a doctor or midwife present, both mother and child died. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, revealing a malicious smile. It is fine, she still has me. My promise to make everyone in the Shen family who harmed her be buried with her wasn't fake. With that said, I threw out a bloody ear. The two of them looked panicked, and I asked in a suppressed voice, You don't recognize it? That is your precious son. Both shocked and angry, they raised their hands about to roar at me. Unfortunately, their bodies swayed, and they couldn't even sit steady. I kicked each of them in the gut, sending them both crashing hard to the ground. Thank you, butler, for poisoning me, you two. Today you shall accompany me in death. Rather than using that shabby hairpin to poison me, let's make it quick and clean. We'll all go together happily. The two struggled in terror. My damned father, Shen Chongshan, even tried to crawl out of the courtyard, but I grabbed his ankle and dragged him back. One at a time, don't rush. Speaking, she grabbed the teapot and smashed it on his head. Before the two of them lost consciousness, I assured them, Don't worry, that fine pair of children won't be forgotten. Only when the two of them rolled their eyes back and passed out did I call for the sweating profusely butler. Fear and regret are useless now. There is only one path left to go all the way to the end and find yourself a way to survive. Don't forget, you were the one who administered the poison. You are an accomplice. Only when they and I are all dead can your son safely return home. The butler had no other choice. To save his son and to survive, he could only drag the two people on the ground into the room as I instructed. All right, I am going to set the fire now. Come put it out after half an hour and establish yourself as a loyal person who saved their master. The butler ran away as if fleeing for his life, but I couldn't help laughing out loud. I had deceived the butler. What I gave him was just a bag of flour, The sleeping drug had already been placed by me in the incense near Song Shuemei and Shen Chongshan's seats, but wanting to get the butler killed was real. Back then, it was he who gave false testimony in the High Hall, attributing Mother's tragic death, her life, and her unborn child's to an accident. Even my wet nurse, who tried to go seek help from Uncle, was blocked by him at the door and beaten to death with clubs. I had too many concerns before. Me own life, my uncle's family's future, and Gu Huaixi's official career and reputation. But now, I am already a dead person who can do anything to me. Flog my corpse. But I won't even leave them their corpses. The fearless have nothing to fear. They must all be buried with my mother. Only after the butler had completely disappeared from sight did young Master Zhou's people, who were hiding in the dark, place the corpse dragged from the mass grave in the middle of the room. After ensuring that the beam would hit Shen Chongshan's legs just right, and that Song Shuemei would only suffer superficial wounds without life-threatening injuries, I set the fire rose with the wind and spread to the beams, and only then did I climb over the wall to leave. Half an hour later, the butler arrived on time to put out the fire. The master's legs were crushed by a roof beam, and the concubine's half-body was burned beyond recognition. But they both still had a breath left. In so much pain they were half dead, furious to the point of heartbreak. The only charred corpse was the young miss who failed to kill and lost her life instead. But he dared not speak. As an accomplice, he could only plead ignorance to everything under Marquis's interrogation. Gu Huaixi's face was full of disbelief and confusion. It has only been an hour. How could it have turned into this? That is right, it was only an hour. So how did his protective umbrella just disappear? The guard that Shen Qingqing had bribed invited him 3 times to the courtyard in the north of the city, but he acted as if he hadn't heard. It wasn't until the 4th call, "The young madam has a stomachache. Please come take a look, my lord," that he was finally roused. "Get lost," the guard froze. Gu Huaixi roared loudly with reddened eyes. "I told you to get lost. Did you hear me?" His bloodshot eyes were real, whether from fear or dread, who knows. Disguised, I hid in the crowd and watched Gu Huaixi's helplessness to my heart's content, then rushed at full speed to the north of the city to watch the show. The wife of the Duke Protector has always had a fiery temper, and this wasn't the first or second time she'd taken the life of a mistress. So I sent a secret letter, telling her that the Duke Protector had taken another mistress in the north of the city, who was now 3 months pregnant, decked in gold and jade, living more lavishly than the wife herself. Fury rose to her brows, and she could no longer sit still. She led a mighty procession of servants and stormed into Shenqing's courtyard in the north of the city. Shen Qingqing had just been intimate with Gu Huaixi, her body still bearing the disgusting traces of their bedtime activities. Wearing only a thin layer of gauze, she reclined half lying on the couch, waiting for the unsatisfied Gu Huaixi to return to her. To be even more seductive, she had her clothes half removed, with a vivid flower painted on her left rear shoulder. Her long legs were just exposed naked like that. When the Duke Protector's wife burst in, this was the scene she saw. Truly a vixen, engaging in such shameful acts in broad daylight, drag her out and beat her. The horrified Shen Qingqing didn't even have time to speak before she was gagged by strong matrons and dragged out to the street. That layer of gauze was torn apart in public, and Shen Qingqing, with tears in her eyes, was pressed naked onto the street and beaten. After more than a dozen strikes, blood was already flowing from her lower body. Force-feed her the safflower potion. You lowly thing, still trying to produce bastards with your mistress, really think you are something special. After a bowl of safflower tea went down her stomach, Shen Qingqing's maid rushed to report to the officials, who then hurriedly came over. But Shen Qingqing, lying in a pool of blood, not only lost half her life, but all her dignity as well. After the authorities made their rounds, they learned the Duke Protector's wife had got the wrong person. The one beaten now was actually the Marquis's mistress. Amid the uproar in the hall, everyone seemed to understand the reason behind Lady Gu's self-immolation. The Duke Protector's wife sneered that Marquis Gu swore by cutting his finger that if he wronged his wife, he'd die pierced by 10,000 arrows. I want to see if a man's vow will really come true. Ungrateful wretch shamelessly stabbing someone's heart with a mistress. She'll never let you go even if she becomes a vengeful ghost. Bah, apologize to you. Wait for your Marquise you to come question me and see who impeaches whom first. His Majesty's cousin, the Duke Protector's wife, left with her entourage showing off her power. Carrying today's gossip, she rushed into the palace. At the same time, the incident in the north of the city was causing a huge stir. Of course, it couldn't have happened without my help. By the time Gu Huasi got the news, the entire capital knew that Marquis Ju kept a mistress in the north of the city, and she was none other than my mother's killer. When he rushed over to the north of the city in a panic, the show was almost over. He was only met with everyone's contempt and ridicule. Gu Huasi valued his reputation and face above all else, his expression darker than the bottom of a pot. Shen Qingqing, loosely draped in an outer robe, reached out to Gu Huasi like grasping at a lifeline, but he merely turned his head away indifferently and said coldly, "My wife detests mistresses the most." I pitied her lowly status with nowhere to go, so I merely lent her a small courtyard to stay in. Yet she dares to claim she is this Marquise's mistress, truly shameless to the extreme. What about the child? What about the pleasure? Before Marquise Gu's power and future, what are they worth mentioning? I suffered for 7 years. Now it is Shen Qingqing's turn to suffer. Shen Qingqing's face was drained of color as she shook her head continuously through her tears. Shen Yunyi is dead. No one stands between us anymore. Why won't you acknowledge me? It is just one child in the future. She remembered she had been forced to drink safflower decoction. There would be no future. I pressed down my felt hat, watching from behind with particular satisfaction. Shen Qingqing had used my childlessness as a knife to stab and hurt me more than once. But now the same knife was piercing her own body, and she couldn't accept it even more than I could. Indeed, only when the knife pierces one's own body does one know how much it hurts. In Gu Huasi's coldness, Shen Qingqing seemed to finally see his heartlessness. He could betray a wife who shared 7 years of hardship with him. The pleasure she provided in bed could be replaced by countless other women. When it involved reputation and future prospects, how could a woman who ruined Marquis's reputation be allowed to stay? Brother-in-law don't brother-in-law. I can be a concubine. Even a mistress is fine. Don't abandon me. Don't. Shen Qingqing grabbed onto Gu Huasi's hem like clutching at a last straw, but Gu Huasi pried open Shen Qingqing's fingers one by one, starting today. Clear out and sell the courtyard in the north of the city. Don't leave any random cats or dogs. Shen Qingqing collapsed to the ground as if struck by a heavy blow. Reputation ruined and body defiled, Gu Huasi didn't want her anymore, and Father Shen was finished too. What way out did she have left? But Gu Huasi didn't wait for her to speak again, and had already left for the Shen family home without looking back. He had damaged his reputation, so naturally he would bring my corpse back to the Jiyu Manor for a grand funeral, using pain both real and feigned to cover up the gossip spreading throughout the capital. But when he rushed into the back courtyard, the person on that stretcher had long since vanished. "Where is she?" the servant stammered. Gu Huasi could hold back no longer and shouted, "This Marquise is asking you, where is the person who was lying here?" The servant startled and hurriedly replied, "The eldest miss actually bribed bandits to cut off the young master's ear and kicked his manhood to pieces." The master received the news and said that such a vicious woman, who conspired with the steward to commit patricide and murder but failed, then harmed her own brother, truly deserved to die. So he had her corpse thrown together with the beaten-to-death steward to the mass grave, to feed the dogs, the master said. She is just a criminal, not worth dirtying the officials' hands. Gu Huasi staggered back 3 steps in shock. She hired someone to kill. Until this moment, he still thought it was just about Shen Chongshan not being able to keep his pants on. He had no time to think further and hurriedly chased after them to the mass grave. But as he brushed past me, his eyes flickered, and he suddenly grabbed my hand. Yun Yayet, when I slowly turned my head, his shocked eyes gradually dimmed. This completely unfamiliar face was not Shen Yunyi. He let go of my hand. How could she have such great ability to deceive everyone? How forgetful he is. Without my schemes to deceive everyone, how could he have walked step by step through mountains of corpses and seas of blood to where he is today? By the time he rushed to the mass grave, the starving jackals, wolves, tigers, and leopards had been waiting for a long time. At the sight of the corpse, they pounced desperately, and who knows where they had dragged that frail skeleton to. With a pile of bone fragments dug up, who could tell which one belonged to the lady? Gu Huai held the hairpin he never gave away and muttered to himself. When life is already gone, what is the use of fighting for that pride? I already gave you a child. Why are you still not satisfied? Was I just fighting for pride? What I've always wanted is your lives. Besides, keeping such a child by my side would truly be a knife stabbing at my heart and lungs. Seeing the guard riding away from afar, he shouted loudly, "My lord, something terrible has happened. The Shen family has been raided." Gu Huai's body stiffened. What? Leading the raid was none other than Crown Prince Zhou Jingchu, who was at odds with Gu Huasi. One piece of incriminating evidence after another was pulled from his chest, and he threw them directly in Shen Chongshan's face. The Shen family's crimes of forming cliques for personal gain and accepting bribes are ironclad. Take them to the dungeon for severe interrogation. Wait, Guesi shouted loudly. Is there solid evidence? If this is a forced confession, does the Crown Prince know what crime that constitutes? Zhou Jingchu lazily lifted his eyelids, met my gaze from afar in the crowd, then sneered. Then, let the Marquise take a good look. Among the ironclad evidence thrown out, letters buying and selling official titles were all found from Gu Huasi's study. They couldn't be more genuine, and the copy I had transcribed was the one truly left in the study as a decoy to fool him. Gu Huasi realized, his expression changed drastically. He couldn't say it. It was me, Shen Yunyi's revenge against him, while he and Shen Qingqing were making love day after day, while they plotted a wicked scheme behind my back, to throw the child before me to raise as the legitimate son, while drinking my blood and flesh, and still finding it insufficient. I sat withered in the study, stroke by stroke sending them to hell, and the bottom one was a signed and sealed confession from the illegitimate son in Yangzhou. His official position was given by the Marquis Gu. Under the Marquis Gu's banner, he bought and sold official titles, amassed wealth, forcibly seized young women, and committed all manner of evil deeds. Each and every one of them was signed, sealed, and confirmed as solid crimes, striking with thunderous force to catch the opponent off guard. This was what Gu Huasi used to be best at, but now he was in a complete mess, unable to attend to everything at once, and couldn't keep up with even one matter. Gu Huasi's hands were trembling. She is taking revenge on me like this. She doesn't even care about her cousin anymore. You mean Miss Shen's cousin? Zhou is unworthy. But following Miss Shen's last wishes, I took him under my command and placed him in my hometown of Linan. Seeing Guasi's utterly shocked expression, I smiled. He thought that by holding my cousin hostage, he'd be absolutely secure. But my cousin had already been sent far away yesterday to a scholar scribe under the Zhou family. Linan is the Zhou family's domain. Even if Gu Huasi wanted to do something to my younger brother, he'd have to think thrice. Taking back the evidence, Zhou Jingchu brushed past Gu Huasi's shoulder. What else did she say? Zhou Jingchu glanced coldly at Gu Huasi and said indifferently, she also said if she'd known those 7 years were wasted on a dog, she might as well have raised a loyal one. Gu Huasi's body stiffened, and his entire face changed color. She is always like this, wanting everything both ways. Haven't I given her enough? Why doesn't she know contentment? Isn't being a proper marquise's wife good enough? Why must she see everything as black and white, making such a fuss that she nearly lost her life? And now everyone is stuck in a difficult position because of her. Zhou Jingchu let out a cold sneer. Back then you loved her so openly and passionately. Wasn't it precisely because you loved her uncompromising nature, her willingness to die rather than submit, her readiness to sacrifice everything for you, Marquise Gu, to advance your career? Now that you are riding high, you turn around and blame her for being so black and white. That just shows you were blind back then. Gu Huasi's eyes flashed coldly, tinged with killing intent. But Zhou Jingchu didn't care at all. With a single look from him, the guards disregarded Shen Chongshan's broken legs and brutally dragged him to the dungeon. The 18 forms of cruel torture were applied over and over again, yet his mouth was covered, so even if he wanted to confess, he couldn't make a sound. Song Shuemei, separated only by a wall, fared no better. Half her body was burned, blood dripping everywhere, and she had to endure daily dousings of salt water and branding irons, truly a fate worse than death. Only after torturing the two of them to the brink of death, and with Shen Chongshan kneeling and begging for mercy, did they finally sign and seal their confessions. The punishment of exile was inescapable, but they managed to drag down Guasi with them. The surprise I left for Gu Huasi was a secret letter exposing him, delivered to His Majesty through the hands of young Master Zhou. He blocked the blade for the Emperor, paving the way for Gu Huasi's rise to success. But what if that conspiracy had his hand in it all along? The crime of deceiving the sovereign is a heinous offense. Before Guasi could react, the Marquis Manor was raided too, this time. It was the embroidered uniform guard from His Majesty's side who went personally. Corruption, bribery, forming cliques for personal gain, colluding with princes to plot great schemes, each and every charge was a capital offence. Gu Huasi remained non-committal. How could the things in the secret chamber be discovered during the raid? He forgot his love, and forgot the past too. Naturally, he forgot the grape arbor we planted together with our own hands when we were newlyweds. No, it had grown lush and canopy-like yet. The day before I left the Marquis Manor, it was uprooted entirely. A large, empty space appeared by the swing, but Gu Huasi's heart and eyes were full of that courtyard in the north of the city. He didn't notice it at all. The things I buried under the grape arbor, he naturally had no idea about either, but they were confiscated by His Majesty. Both the Shen family and the Jiyu family had their homes raided, and the entire families were exiled. The Shen family's old nest couldn't escape either. Even Shen Qingqing's brother, who had been swaggering around arrogantly using Jiyu Huasi's name, was thrown to the bitter cold lands. They thought the worst suffering was only this much. But when the mighty exile procession headed north, I had already taken several thousand taels in banknotes and bought them a fate where they could neither live nor die. The bone-gnawing pain, I've tasted it, and now they should taste it too. Xin Qingqing still had a pretty face after all. So in order to suffer less, she naturally used all the tricks she had used on Gu Huaizi. She didn't lack food or clothing, but she couldn't care about her crippled mother, useless father, and the terrifyingly gloomy Gu Huais. The further north they went, the colder it got in less than a month. The good-for-nothing Shen Chongshan died miserably in the snowy night after enduring endless torment, with no one to collect his body, becoming food for the wolves. When he watched my mother bleed to death with his own eyes, he should have thought there would be a day when someone would watch him wait for death with their own eyes. As for Song Xuemei's son, the wound caused by the bandits festered beyond recognition, and he exhausted all his pleading words begging Shen Qingqing to seek medical treatment for him. But where could Shen Qingqing possibly get medicine to treat wounds? He was in heart-wrenching pain, yet he saw his sister, the culprit, hiding in the soldier's tent eating and drinking, well, completely ignoring him. Driven mad with hatred, he set fire to the camp tent in the dead of night. Shen Qingqing was burned beyond recognition, and he also died falling off a cliff while trying to escape. Song Xuemei and her daughter with their rotting bodies were thrown together. Useless people who couldn't do hard labor were kept alive with one bowl of thin porridge a day, unable to live or die, only to be dragged to death by pain. When my mother was lying in bed suffering in agony, this mother and daughter sat in the corridor saying all sorts of disgusting things about my mother, making her death unbearably painful. Not even sparing the tea house. Isn't brother-in-law afraid of being discovered by sister? There is. I watched with satisfaction, and finally showed my face when I stuffed the last 100 taels of silver to the escorts and asked them to buy drinks. Gu Huaisi was startled. Yunyi, he looked deeply affectionate and was about to throw himself at me. How did you come back? You came to see me. When he was full of hope, I smiled and pulled out a knife from behind my waist. Back then, to help you climb to a high position, I aborted 2 children for you. The first child was killed by your legitimate elder brother, winning you the position of heir. The second child blocked a blade for the emperor, helping you become a close minister to the Son of Heaven. I've taken back the power and wealth you gained with my flesh and blood, but the pain inflicted on me, you should have a taste of it." His expression changed drastically, and he turned to flee, but wearing heavy shackles, how could he run? With a swift motion of the blade, both his legs were crippled. The wind and snow raged wildly, as I finally threw down that knife and the heavy burden I'd carried for over 10 years. "Mother, I am free." Under the great trellis in the backyard, Mother held me in her arms, feeding me bite by bite the little sweet treats she made herself. "With your uncle protecting me, I haven't suffered hardship in this life. My Yunyi should also live without knowing what sorrow or suffering is. This little brother in my belly came with difficulty, but for Yunyi's sake, Mother isn't afraid of this bit of hardship. My sweetest days were when I sat in Mother's arms eating sweet treats. The day she died, I could no longer taste sweetness. Until today, when I took out that candied fruit Mother made 20 years ago. Mother, it is so sweet." The day I headed south was rarely a bright, sunny day. Just me and my horse, carrying only Mother's memorial tablet as I went toward Linan. Having shed the heavy burden of love and hatred, I should be myself now, embracing passion, rushing toward the next journey through mountains and seas. That is the rest of my life, with endless possibilities.